Christian counseling. So today we will study the basic principle of techniques, the basic principle and techniques of counseling. And continuous section is how do we guidance and counseling and the concept and counseling and scope of counseling, why we need to necessity of counseling, kinds of that. And next week we will study the biblical counseling. So this course is the Christian counseling. So I would like to progress this class for counseling first, and then automatically approach the counseling, the biblical counseling and Christian counseling. So also this is for introduction class, so I briefly introduce for you guys. So first today, the basic principle and the techniques of counseling. So first, the kind of techniques for counseling. There are three kinds of that. First is language, that is the linguistic communication technique, and there are some kind of levels of human relations and conversation counseling. And third one is to conversational tips. So how do we counseling for customers? So what kind of characteristics of counseling dialogue? So, and then I will introduce the counseling techniques. Okay, first, the basic principles of techniques of counseling. We approach first techniques for counseling. So there are many kinds of approaches for this. I would like to introduce only three kinds of that. First is linguistic communication techniques, that is counseling through language. How we communicate counselor and client. So that is for, I will introduce for how many? I will introduce by language counseling 11. So I will introduce the 11 linguistic communication techniques. So first, reject, interpolation, facilitation, supposition, interpretation, reassurance, generalize, summary, and classification, de-statement, acceptance. So I introduce one by one. So first, rejection. Second, interpolation. Facilitation. Fourth, supposition. Interpretation. Six, reassurance. Seven, general needs. 8, is statement. 11, acceptance. So this one is to very active, also very aggressive. But this one is for passive and inactive. So this direction is more active method, technique. This one is more passive style, okay? This is for linguistic communication, counseling through language. So let me clarify it. This is for techniques on the counseling through the languages. There are 11 kind of. So rejection to interpolation, something, and etc. So this part is more active and aggressive technology. This part is more passive and inactive style, active technique. So I would like to one by one introduce to you guys, okay? So first is injection, rejection. So rejection means it is to reject or refuse the idea of client. Client something said and I reject. Well, this is wrong, and you are I don't agree to with your idea, something. So it is clear that the client is not personally rejecting. I can't agree to what you think is foolish. So you think I'm very foolish, but I don't accept your idea. This is for rejection style, rejection technique. So because this is what the psychological test I perform. So you did the psychological test, and the output is this. So you are not wrong. So this is reject. I would like to reject your idea. And for example, I think it is wrong to think of same-sex lovers because they hate soccer. It's not related. So I'll say I'm sorry, but when I hear about you, it is not true, isn't it? Something like that. So rejection is I don't agree your idea. This is very passive and aggressive techniques by language. Second is interpellation. Interpellation is first fact check and truth finding. What is the truth? And exploration of the problem through process investigation, confirmation, question, and interrogation. So it means it's a detailed check or survey and confirm question. Did you do that? Did you think that? Something like that. And the interrogation. So it confirms the seriously, frequency, duration, and the intensity of influence of the problem. So during the conversation, the counselor knows it, confirmed for seriousness and frequency, duration, and the intensity of influencing. these things is for impellations. Impellation is something like the question, ask question. And the facilitation, facilitation. The facilitation is, it means answering the client's questions or technical references to its actions and trends. So the clients ask something and what kind of trends of client. And then the client question, client asked me and I answered. This is called facilitation. So at this time, you should be realistic, logical, and not embroiled in emotions. You cannot embroiled. Embroiled means it's go inside his mind. So phenomenon is closely examined to the result, interpretation of the psychological examination, etc. And it simplifies. Also, the facilitation means explanation, evaluation, and edification. So this technology is for explanation to client, the evaluation, and also edification to the client. And this one is something like the teaching and learning. The client teach the counselors teach the clients the learning system, goals, reinforcement, starting point, behavior, etc. But they are suitable for the age and the background of the client. So the counselors think about this client age and background, and then sometimes it's teach them or to the education. So this method is facilitation. Facilitation is promote. And next technique is supposition. Supposition means several questions that stimulate and synchronize the client to more advance for the purpose of counseling. So supposition is some kind of suggestion. The suggestion to client. So it provides idea, assumption, position, and countermeasures of thought and predicted result. It is not nagging. Nagging is some kind of advising. So this is not negative. So if I suggest a possibility of choice that the client did not know yet, or I will try to do this if I am in your position. But this should not be advised. Exactly should not be advised. This is for supposition. Supposition subject to if I do something again, this style, say the supposition. And next technique is interpretation. Interpretation is to understand and explain. So it is used when ambiguous word, abstract concepts that are difficult to apply, etc. come out. It is used to when the client a conceptual system, a specific expression, special class or local dialect, Puritanism, spoken language, slang, metaphor, etc. Okay, wait, I forgot the pen. Thank you. So this is release and the meaning of the client and the feeling hidden behind the words are checked. This is interpretation, explain. So the counselor checked the client's hidden idea or feeling, and then the counselors using this method of interpretation. And next is reassurance. Reassurance is to comfort, trust. So this is for very strengthening techniques that provide hope, courage, and confidence to the client. I give you the hope, courage, and confidence. You should be more courageous, more happy, more confident. So it is good to do immediately after the emotion and action of your desire. If you do this, and then you are very emotionally appear desiring. So the client, the counselor says, I agree. And then you did very well. You're very good, something. So it's a praise and encouraging. So use the praise with the encouragement and silent smile. Sometimes the counselors express the silent smile and very warm eye expression and nod. Really. That means it's over. This is for reassurance. So this is for technology for the client's very strengthful techniques. So even if the don't say it, but very slightly smile and warm eye expression and slightly nodding is good for method reassurance. Okay. And 7 is general needs. Generally, it is to read the client to choose the topic of praise. So we lead to client. So what kind of topic do you want? What kind of praise do you want? Such a thing. So they take an open position, but take responsibility for the progress of counseling. So they ask and propose the role expectation of counselors, such as testimony and possible solution alternatives. So the counselors suggest to the what kind of expectation and what is your solution expectation and possible solution alternatives. Ask and suggestion. This kind of general needs. And summary. Summary is to client suggest some contents and emotion is repeat and summarize. So it is repetition of reviews and points about what the client suggests and the feelings. The client suggests something or feel something, and then the counselors say to repeat and review the point. simplify them to the real and the main point. And the client should remove the cliche and side stories such as super plurality and write a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view means is briefly see the height positioning. So not detail, but briefly can see the overall. So after long statement of the client, the direction of consultation is maintained, and the main subject and the idle talk. Idle talk is very some not serious work. Idle talk, distinguished. So you suggest some main subject, and this is for idle talk. So you can surely distinguish. So that's why the client feel this is main subject. This is idle talk. So this is summarized technology for counseling. And ninth is clarification. This technology need for counselors and clients use the event when they need to understand it more transparently. So it means is to they want to understand between client and counselors clearly at this time using these technologies. So the client confirms whether the counselor has received the exact consent and feelings of the statement, giving to clients an opportunity to reject or modify. So that is to rewrite it like a minor. So mirror, sorry. So the client and counselors use the event. They want to understand the comprehension, and then the counselors give the chance change and give the client the opportunity to reject or modify. This type of techniques is a clarification. And next techniques is a restatement. This one is for the client statement is the conjectural rejection, giving the correct feedback, repeated. Is the presentation, which is the client objectively listens to, confirms, and recites the emphasis. So the clients heard the objectives and confirms and recites the emphasis. At this time, the counselors should choose the contents to be desired. So this statement means the counselors give some chance to decide and objective listen, and then the counselors give to client should choose the content of it to be desired. This is a restatement. And very passive and inactive technologies is accepted. So use whatever the client says, the counselors is accepted as non-judgmental openness. So non-judgmental open means is accept, widely open. So it implies the accept, understanding and empathy through silence, smile, nod, etc. So anyway, they express the acceptance between counselors and client. So, and also the counselors give to the client, encourages them to continue to speak, continue to speaking. The acknowledgement and the relief and the sense of trust are offered to client. So the counselors offered to the client acknowledgement, relief, and the sense of trust, etc. This is very accept from clients think about this. My situation, my statement, my feeling is accepted by counselors. So this very passive and inactive style counseling technologies. So I introduced the counseling through the languages. So there are 10 kinds of techniques, but you can use the only one. It's not. You are mixing this one and this one is doing the situation. So or some condition and phenomena, and depends on the characters. Okay. This is for counseling through language, that is the linguistic communication technique. So I introduced the 11s. And second techniques for counseling is the level of human relations and conversations in counseling. So there are 5 kinds of conversation. So cliche level, very slightly say to something. So mouse to mouse conversation is first level, one-dimensional dialogue. So we say the cliche level. So write daily history. What did you do today? How about today? Very light daily action. And mouse-to-mouse conversation. This is for one-dimensional dialogue, cliche level. And second level is gossip level. So this is report to the third party. I did something to, Mama, I did it, I thought there was something. So report that. This is a second two-dimensional dialogue. This is gossip level. And third dimensional dialogue is idea level. It means it's thinking and opinion, and head conversation. So one dimensional is mouse to mouse conversation, but it's third dimensional dialogue, that is idea level, is to thinking and opinion. And head conversation is more density, more classified. And next level is feeling level. The fourth dimensional dialogue is feeling level. So each conversation reveals feeling and emotion, and we say this heart and heart conversation. Conversation between the heart and heart. This is fourth dimensional dialogue. And the final peak level. The fifth dimensional dialogue is a peak level. This is a dialogue between personality and personality. The counselor and client, or person to person, or men and boys, or husband and wife, and parents and children. The highest fifth dimension dialogue is peak level. Peak level is to give some personality, respect the other side personality. This kind of dialogue we say is peak level or fifth dimension. So I right here first cliche. Cliche level. And second level is gossip level. And third, idea level. And the fourth, feeling level. And fifth level, peak level. Conversation. So some kind of research result of language psychologists. It is said that the move we go from the center of the to the centers of you, and the move we develop into our consciousness, the more desirable human relations grow. The better the mental health, the less the person pronoun is used is language. So if I have a good mental and I don't use the first person pronoun, I don't say that. This is for better health, mental health guys. Don't use the first person pronoun. So many researchers for this textbook in the 1940s, the American linguist, analyst, speeches by the powerful people at the time. So, for example, Adolf Hitler is one of the 53 words. I, me, something. Don't use that. Only Hitler using one time or 53 words. And you know the Mussolini from the Italian, Second World War. But he is one of the 83 words, just one among the 83. And Roosevelt is one of the 100 words. I, my, me, mine. 100 words. And Charlie Chaplin, Chamberlain is said to have used the first person word I, my, me, mine words out of 294 words. So the more self-consciousness or centeredness, the more monopolistic, selfish, and exclusive in human relations, and the more undesirabilities. So, yeah, some people have some very selfish, self-centered mind or self-consciousness. Is very egoist for human relations. They research that. So, especially in the human relations, Communication in language is very important, as you know. So the same is true of human relationship between counselors and clients in the counselor's end. So we say, never hurt her if not happy. So a man is only as good as his word. And also a soft answer turns away wrath. I'll give it $1,000. Sometimes the right words are the gold apples on the silver tray. Also, the gentle answers is to cut off anger. What it means is that the words is very important for communication. So the word refers to the importance of communication, these idioms. The same is true of the relationship between the counselor and the client in the counseling sense. It's more essential situation. So next, I'll introduce look at what is the drug and the poisonous word in the conversation in human relations. So you have to distinguish or become a drug language or a language that can hurt. So first, the languages that become drugs is thank you, you look good, I miss you, thanks so much, you are the best too, that suit you wear, you're very well, or something. This is for good, become a drug. But the other hand, poisoning word. It's hard to believe. I'm tired now. I knew it. What do we know about your subject? What can you do? Something like that. This is called language become a poison word. And the other one is the language can hurt for other side. Words that hurt one's pride. And words that undermine autonomy. And some kind of words that cause you to lose your motivation. And some kind of words that instill false values. And words that remove competence. And some word that eliminates creativity. And burdensome remark. And word that makes you feel anxious. And some kind of words of rebellion. Something. Most of them is use cards. These things is for these kind of language that can hurt. So don't use that. And third one is to first I'll introduce the techniques for language techniques. First is counseling through the language, and second one is the level of human relations and conversations, and third one is conversational tips, what kind of tips for conversation. So there are some reports I bring in. So characteristics of counseling dialogue. So I introduce that the conversational tips by some report. Okay. So the theoretically position and technique of counseling vary. But the common key element of counseling activities is communication between counselor and client. Because counseling is fundamentally based on a true human encounter that can promote human growth and development. Communication in counseling relationship is different from communication in other social relationships. So daily and habitual conversation mainly try to solve individual problem through information provision, persuasion, moral judgment, and inappropriate emotional support. So counseling dialogue is to help them solve their problems by establishing and maintaining basic assistance relationship and understanding their exploring the inner world of individuals based on them to identify and clarify the problem situation. Counseling communication is often a facilitative and therapeutic communication. The promoting communication is not just stopping the problem solving of an individual in the process of assistance, but also the communication of the will to grow and develop the potential of human beings. Therefore, the counseling techniques can be regarded as conversational tips and communication techniques. This is why the training of facilitative conversation techniques is important in counselor education. So, rather, this is for very famous researchers regarding this conversational tips. He suggests some content. So Rogers is content of the promotive communication. So first, he suggests 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many? 7. So Rogers suggests some kind of promotive conversation. First, and second is changes, genuineness, force, concreteness, confrontation, 6, self-disclosure, 7, immediacy. Rogers suggests the promotive communication. So first, empathic understanding. And this is good methodology for promotive communication between counselors and client. The counselors does not intervene the counselor's own concept frame of how the client feels, thinks, and perceives, but try to communicate it without distortion by actually understanding it according to the client's internal frame of references. At this time, the counselor stands in the position of the client and tries to understand the client, but maintains the human boundaries between the client. Through this process, the counselor understands and express not only the superficial emotion and thoughts that the client clearly express, but also the inner feelings and thoughts of the client that are not clearly expressed, thereby promoting the client's self-exploration. These things is empathy, understanding. And second promotion communication technique is unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard. This is respected for counselors to express warm consideration toward clients. We do not condition any specific behavior of the client, but respect and care for the client as a human being. The respect is fundamentally based on human values and perception of dignity. Also, whatever the client has done and has any problems, it is rooted in loving and respecting the clients as a valuable human being who needs to exist, grow and develop. The counselors accept the client's feeling, thought, and behaviors in non-criticism attitude and express and deliver them through communication. These things is for unconditional positive regard. And third, communication positive promotive communication is for genuineness, suggest genuineness. Rather pointed out that the counselor's internal experience, perception, and expression of it must be matched in the assistance process, which can promote positive personality change of the client. Counselors express pure and genuine human interest honestly and naturally without writing any marks or playing roles about the client. No need to marks and writing. The counselor's verbal expression and the non-verbal expression are consistent. However, negative emotions are expressed honestly, but they are not deteriorate by expressing them in a non-destructive and constructive manner. So in other words, it promotes the counseling relationship and help the client learn how to express negative emotions and experience in the process of life. How to notice the process. The client notices the negative emotions. So the Rogers suggests three things, but this one from the Kakop. Kakop added 5 more promotive communication. So Kakov added the theory presented by Lodge. Concreteness. Speciality is the use of specific terms instead of general and abstract words to avoid ambiguity when discussing individual emotion and experiences. As a result, by clearly distinguishing emotions and experience, it is possible to promote exploration, and self-understanding of the helper. And Kakov suggests confrontation. The counselors perceive the client feeling, attitude, behavior contradictions, and discrepancies, and clearly point out them, thereby promoting new insights and changes in behavior of the client. However, the face should not be used to change and attack the client, and should be done in the form of advanced level of empathic understanding. Facing provides an alternative, more objective, and less distorted perspective on oneself, other than word by clearly recognizing the discrepancy between words and action, thought and emotion, and self and ideal self. This is called confrontation. And next, this is self-disclosure. Self-disclosure opened. Self-opening means that the counselors disclose information or experience about himself. The counselor reveals that he has similar experience with the client. Similarity and difference are emphasized at this time. So at this time, is similarity and differences is emphasized. So Club says the self-opening is an aspect of integrity, and that it is the essence of a true relationship. The helpers and assistants naturally share personal information. However, the integrity is distinguished in that it focuses on the expression of emotion, and self-disclosure focus on the disclosure of information or facts. And the last class, Kakov suggests immediacy. So the focus on the interaction between helpers and helpers, more than any other human relationship barrier that has explained immediating is so hard. So researcher Egan points out that the essence of instantaneousness is direct and mutual communication, saying that intentionousness is a direct and open discussion about what is happening in the human relations here and now in the process of assisting. In this way, intentionousness means that when a helper expresses the relationship with the helper during the assistance process, the helper sensitively perceives it and responds directly to it and discusses it. This is for immediacy presented for promotive communication skills. Okay, so these things is I introduced the basic principle and the techniques. Especially today, I introduced the techniques for communication between counselors and clients. So, and next, I will introduce the more deeply introduction counselor one more time for review the definition, guidance, concept, notion, and misconception about counseling, scope of counseling, necessity of counseling, steps in the counseling process, frequently asked questions. So today, next class, I will introduce some report regarding the counseling before we deeply go to the Christian counseling. So I prepared all thing. This is our today class. Okay. So thanks for this class. And if you have any kind of question, let me know it by email to ask those questions. Okay. Thank you. See you next.